Team, in this episode of Two Friends, we talk about the FA Cup results. We show our teams for the upcoming game week, potential wood replacements, and also which teams to target, who's doubling and who's blanking. Catch it in the episode. Uden played played when Marmoush didn't. It'll be interesting to see who gets that spot, but Foden hasn't been great, so that's why I'm thinking, hey, Marmoush might be the way to go.
It's going to be a bit of an atmosphere. Newcastle have just won their first cup in a long time. They have had an open bus tour. I'm hoping there's going to be a few kind of hangover missed trainings. Maybe they're not on form. Maybe there's a bit of a Brentford slip-up coming. That's my hope. That's where my money is. It's probably very foolish, but, you know, it's a big picture thing.
He's played 70 minutes, and you have said in the past when someone has had a head injury, they may not come back the same. So do you take the risk with Mateta? He is playing Southampton at home this week, so that's a good fixture. And if Crystal Palace are doubling in 33, then that's 2 double game weeks in a row.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Our little preview session on the back of our review that we did the other day. Not much to talk about this week, I don't think. Just our teams going forward. Andy, welcome. How you going?
I really can't wait for FPL to start again, EPL to start again. So yeah, I'm excited because there's only 2 more sleeps.
Yeah, look, mate, it's been a long time between drinks for the EPL. We've had a little bit of international break, and we've had a little bit of FA Cup, but nothing has quite filled my cup. I've even dragged myself out to an Australian football rules game today, and I was just missing the Premier League. So I get it straight into my eyes, I think, and let the pain continue for you, hopefully, with our FPL league.
Oh, mate, I think it's time for equilibrium to reinsert itself and for me to get a few wins in a row. But what are we looking at in this episode?
Well, I think we're halfway through our FA Cup results. We kind of know a little bit about what's going on. So touching base on those, we know that Crystal Palace have beaten Fulham 3-0, so are now through to the semi-finals. Mateta returned, played in a bit of a face mask, scored. Kind of looked a bit meh as he came off, so, you know, maybe tempted there. But we now know that Crystal Palace will double. They will have blank in 34, and they will either double in 33 or 36, more likely to be 33. We also know that Forest knocked out Brighton on penalties, and a bit of a twist that's come out from Ben Crellin that their game more than likely will stay in 34, so they won't blank. Their game will be rescheduled to the middle of that week because they have a Monday night game in 33 and a Monday night game, an early game in 35. So to reorganize that into one of those weeks makes it quite tricky. So maybe midweek 34 is where that one's going to go. So no double for Forest.
Yeah, well, let's just rewind a little bit just on what we know then. You said, so Crystal Palace beat Fulham 3-0.
They did.
The scorers were Sarr, Eze, and...
Mateta.
It wasn't Mateta. Did Mateta score?
I thought so. Let me have a look.
No, I thought it was someone else. It was Sarr, Eze, and there was someone else. And I think Eze actually assisted Sarr.
Very well,
so Mateta,
too.
So Mateta did play, but only, like you said, 17 minutes.
Nketiah scored the other one.
Nketiah, that's right, Eddie Nketiah. So if Mateta scored, I think it would be a shoe-in. But he's played 70 minutes, and you have said in the past when someone has had a head injury, they may not come back the same. So do you take the risk with Mateta? He is playing Southampton at home this week, so that's a good fixture. And if Crystal Palace are doubling in 33, then that's 2 double game weeks in a row. It sounds like Munoz, you're definitely going to have him in. You either have Eze and Sarr or one of them and Mateta up front, right? And I think that's the decision drama that you have to attend with. The thing is this, I think Eze is coming into a bit of form. I don't think I can bring myself to buy Eze after how much he has trolled all of FPL so far. But yeah, I don't know. If he's coming in form, maybe he's the right person to buy. So regardless, Mateta or Eze seem like they'll be good picks. Crystal Palace is better off for FPL managers doubling in 33 than they are in 36, because that way you can just get the 2 double game weeks over and done with. Then you can do your wild card or your transfer out to take them out for any double game week players later on.
Yeah.
The thing with the whole Forest and Brighton result, what does that actually mean then? It means that Forest are unlikely to double because they're going to be 33, 34, 35, right? What about Brighton? Will they have a double game week?
No,
at all.
Because they now won't blank in 34, I think, unless maybe they play someone like City, so they could potentially blank, but I think the likelihood is that they will now have a fixture in 34, so they are not going to double.
So if that's the case, is 34 not going to be as big of a blank as we think it is? And will 33 not be as big of a double as we think it is?
Probably a bit of both. I think that we're definitely not looking at as much of a double as we thought. And I think the blank is going to be a bit softened as well. So game weeks confirmed for game week 34 as of recording now. Liverpool versus Tottenham, Chelsea versus Everton, Wolves versus Leicester, Newcastle versus Ipswich. There will be, we're thinking not Forest versus Brentford in the midweek. Slots are still in 34. Southampton versus Fulham, Brighton versus West Ham, and then depending on the outcome of results. So you've got Arsenal, who now won't play because they are playing Crystal Palace, so they will now blank. You have got Bournemouth versus Manchester United, which will be determined tonight when Bournemouth have played. You've got Man City versus Aston Villa. So one of those will win. So if City and Villa win, we'll get the Bournemouth game. And if Bournemouth and Preston win, we'd get the City Villa game. Does that make sense?
So that means double game week 33 would look like Crystal Palace, Arsenal,
Yep,
Man City / Aston Villa.
yeah. So if City or Villa win their ties, City Villa will be off. So it's got Bournemouth City and you got Villa Preston. So you think Villa would get past Preston. So you pretty much guarantee that fixture is off. So you'll have Villa, Palace, City, Villa, Arsenal. Palace, yeah, City, Villa, and then maybe Bournemouth United if Bournemouth get past City.
And 33 is the likely double game week which they'll squeeze him in, or 36.
Yeah, 33 more likely, I think, is the going thing.
So just on that. So even though we just said 33 may not be have as many doubles as we thought, they are a lot of good teams doubling though. When you think about it, their fancy football assets that are available to double.
Yep.
You have Crystal Palace, who have some pretty good assets. Arsenal, Saka would be back by then. Man City, Aston Villa, yeah, not great, but you still have Watkins up there. If Man United and Bournemouth potentially double, Bruno Fernandes, Bournemouth, the likes of Kluivert, Semenyo, where do you go with all of this? I mean, the 33 double could, although not as many teams double, it could be a huge double, like an expensive one. There is an argument I could see almost for free hitting 33.
Depending on how you're setting up, I think. If you are stocking your team, so just to go back to what you're saying about Palace, there's a couple of veins of thought there. Like you could be putting players into your team now having 3 in there for the 32 double or the 33 double. But then if we're going to get to the semi-final, which is going to be 34, how many players are going to play in that second game of 33? And are you going to get a double? Are you going to get a double from both Sarr and Eze? Or are they going to sit out that second game in the double to make sure they're fit for the semi? Are you going to have Mateta sitting out? So it does complicate a bit, and with them having 4 games in 2 game weeks does also complicate it a bit. Like you would expect to be a bit more rotation, as they do not want to lose players for that semi-final. So that could be tricky. But if you've got 3 Palace players and you've got, because of the last couple of games, the blank game we just gone, you're holding a Mamush, a Haaland, a Gvardiol. That's 6 players there that now might be blanking. So instead of only using all your free transfers, maybe you're saying like the free hit's still a good option. Maybe bench boosting and wild carding, free hitting 34. There's still quite a few options out there, but definitely does stir up some more things when we don't know where these doubles are going to go as of yet. And we probably won't know by the time the next game week starts. If you are wild carding, maybe holding off is the best option to know when those doubles are going to go in. And it will give you also having a bit of time to know how these players are going. Like Palace looks fairly good in the FA Cup. How are they going to look with a different striker if Mateta's not back to form? Are we going to get as many output from Sarr, from Eze? It changes our thoughts on. I think we were looking at Forest options. They got not bad fixtures for the end of the season. But now maybe some rumors that Chris Wood is going to miss the end of the year. So does that really like they had no firepower this morning, because I watched the latter half of that game and it didn't look fabulous from a going forward perspective. So does that diminish the rest of the team? And now they're not going to double. There's a lot of things to weigh up, and there's a lot of, I think patience might be the key for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I'd agree with the likes of Forest. Chris Wood being out, that's actually quite concerning. He's been their main goal scorer for a while, although he has blanked the last few game weeks. But he's always been a threat for the opposing team to worry about, right? Now, when you don't have Chris Wood and they don't double, they also don't blank. I think attacking assets in Forest may not be as appealing, but their defensive assets, I think, would still be as appealing. And having a defender or a goalkeeper, the likes of like a Nico Williams or a Milenkovic, I think is a bit expensive for his price point. Or ourselves, just to be like a backup, or just to play when you need something. They do have these pretty decent fixtures. I think is not a bad shout. You're right. I think with Crystal Palace players, I want Mateta in for this week, but I just am not sure what he's like at the moment. And Eze, if he's coming to form, I've already got 2 Palace players, right? Where I don't want to transfer one person in and then get FOMO and change it. Now, you raise a good point. I don't think wildcarding in 33 is the way to go, because if you look at it, if you can get your team set up before 33, then 33 would be the one that you would play triple captain or a bench boost. So you can't wildcard and triple captain, or wildcard and bench boost, right? You can't use 2 chips in the one game week.
Yeah.
So you'd almost want your team set up before 33. So by 32, going into 33, it's ready to go, and then you can bench boost or triple captain.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, shall we have a look at our teams then? Have you made any changes? Have you clicked the wildcard button? Have you made any transfers? Are you going to make any transfers? Where are you at?
Look, let me share, and you will see. No, I've made no transfers. I have been with this constant stream of so and so has an injury, so and so is not fit. Mateta didn't look good. I've held off for now. I think when we were talking about Crystal Palace assets before, it's very team dependent. If you're sitting with a Chris Wood in your front line, a swap to Mateta is a straight swap. Probably isn't a bad call. It is a bit risky, but it's one that could get you a bit of a bonus. If you're sitting with, like me, a Dango in midfield who's getting less minutes, has got 1 point for a few games, Evan Nielsen is back. That's my problem point. So I'm debating whether to move him out for a. I was kind of looking at a Semenyo, but it seems like a sideways move. So I'm kind of looking at maybe doing a Dango to an Eze or a Sarr for this week, because they're going to be my long-term plan regardless. It just means I won't build up the free transfers. Having a -4 last week, I only have 1 to go this week. I'm kind of happy with my back line. So Sells in net, Munoz against Southampton, Kirk as it switch, Gabriel at home to Fulham, and Bumo away at Newcastle. Dango is the one we just talked about. Palmer has trained apparently with the squad, so he's there at home to Tottenham. Fernandez away at Forest now looks like a better option. It wasn't a bad option, but now with maybe Forest having less power, maybe. Wissa away at Newcastle, Isak at home to Brentford, and Haaland captain at home to Leicester. Considering how Forest looked in the cup, swapping Dallo for Dango and not making a transfer is also kind of on my mind, and moving Neto to first sub so that if Palmer doesn't play, Neto would come on instead. There's a lot, and there's a bit too much going on in the FPL world for me to wildcard at the moment. So I think I'm 95% sure I'm going to hold off, and I'm 50-50 on if I'll make a transfer. But if I do make a transfer, it will be Dango out for probably one of the Palace boys.
Yeah, fair call. You're right. The Forest versus United game all of a sudden looks a lot better for the United defenders. Especially with the great Chris Wood out. Who would have thought at the start of the season your Forest striker would be like one of the people that just greatly overperforms XG?
And like I was talking about having easy options for Chris Wood if you go somewhere. So Chris Wood to Evan Nielsen is a long-term move you could look at if you've still got Chris Wood there. The other cover for Wood that if you wanted to be a little bit differential, you could go with it Awani, however you say his name, because he'll be filling that spot up front. Or if you've got a midfield spot you want covered, chucking in an Alanga might get you some points going forward.
Yeah. I'll share my screen. So this is where I'm at. I've made one transfer. I brought in Sa. So it could have gone either Eze or Sa. So I took out Matoma.
So I have to go Eze now, just to be different.
You have to go Eze now. I've been liking Sa's scoring. He's had some great games recently. He scored last night as well. So yeah, I've liked where he's been. Do I get Eze in? I don't know. So my next transfer is either Chris Wood, like you were saying, Chris Wood to Mateta, or maybe someone else to Eze. I'm just not quite sure yet. I may not even make that move this week. If I did, it would cost me a -4. And I might just sit tight with 2 Crystal Palace boys. And I'm probably going to leave the rest of my team. Captain Armband on Haaland against Leicester. That's just too juicy to let up. And then the vice captain on Salah. Now, following on from last week's chat, we talked about how what teams have things to play for, right? And West Ham don't have much to play for. So I'm wanting to ship Bowen. I didn't want to send him this week because he's playing against Wolves. That there could be a few goals in that game, and then afterwards he's playing Bournemouth and Liverpool. So I'll probably ship him those games. Even, yes, Southampton is a good game, but I don't know. By then, 33. There's a good chance Bowen's going to be someone else. So I'm just very conscious that I have no Arsenal players in my team right now. And if Arsenal double in 33, I definitely am going to want some Arsenal players. So for me, Bowen will be a Saka. Burma will be downgraded to someone else. And then someone in my backline will become a Gabriel and maybe even have a Raya on board, and I've played around with the price points, and I can afford, like, that would be me spending all my money, but then I'd be having 3 Arsenal players in here while keeping my Man City, keeping Salah, keeping Isak, keeping Mateta, keeping Sarr, keeping Munoz. So ultimately, I think there is a wild card on the cards for me, maybe say 32, right? Which kind of tells me, do I really need to make any more transfers? I may as well roll the next 2. We'll see.
Yeah, it's that advantage, isn't it? The advantage payoff. Like if you were to move Wood to, say Evan Nielsen or Mateta playing Southampton away and, Ipswich at home, do they score more than 4 points more than Bowen, or do they score more points in the next 2 game weeks than Bowen would over the next 2 game weeks? So like, it's tough, isn't it? Like, because like I think if it's a Wood to Mateta and you're confident in that move, I think that's a move you make now. You get the Southampton game, you get the next game, and then you start getting the doubles. That seems like that makes sense. But if you're not confident on his minutes, makes it harder.
And that's the thing. I think it'll be a risk because if I know I want to go Wood to Mateta, I may as well take the neg for this week because then I can roll 31, 32, and then when I wildcard, no, because even if I roll 30 to 31, that's 1 free transfer. 31 to 32. If I wildcard in 32, I'm only carrying 1 free transfer. So I'm ending 33 with 2 transfers.
If you wildcard in 32.
If I wildcard in 32.
Yeah, because you don't. If you wildcard, you don't gain a free transfer that week.
No, you don't. So if that's the case, yeah, like is the neg full worth it this week for me to have an extra transfer on the back end?
And how quickly after your wildcard do you feel you'll need transfers? If you're not going to need them for a couple of weeks, you might get a bit of an advantage now. But if you feel like you're wildcarding to catch some doubles and then you're going to have a couple of players you don't really want, then you need them on the flip side.
I think it depends on the chip strategy. Because if I'm wildcarding 32, like I wasn't planning on wildcarding 32. I was planning on keeping it. But the fact that Arsenal made double as well, I don't have enough transfers to bring in the Newcastle boys for 32 and then all the Arsenal guys for 33. Like I'm not going to have enough transfers to do that.
Yeah. And that's where and that's where we've been talking about like pre-planning. So like when I've talked about a wildcard team, like a wildcard team for me at the moment with new news, might change it a bit, but it's got 2 Forest defenders, an Arsenal defense, 2 defense and a midfield from Palace, and then some cheaper Brighton, Bournemouth, 3 from Newcastle, 1 across each of the pitch. So that's a nice spread. Like it's only 1 City asset, but I did have a bit in the bank there, and that could then have a like my other Forest asset could be a Gvardiol. Then I would be.
What, you mean City asset?
Yeah. To making it a second one, so Haaland and 1 other. Hang on, let's just. Instead of talking it, let me show you what I mean.
Yeah, let's have a look.
So this was my rough kind of plan before we knew what was going on with the FA Cup. So, Sells, Gabriel Munoz, Livramento, Salah, Semenyo, Eze, Minte, Isak, Haaland, Evan-Nielsen, Gordon, Kirkes, Milenkovic. So this was set up like this because it was very easy after 32 to turn Gordon to Saka. And then I'd have Gabriel, Salah, Saka, Haaland. Isak, which feels like quite a good 5 to have in your team when it's padded with Evan-Nielsen, Semenyo, Eze, Minter, and Munoz, and Livramento. Livramento is going to play at this point because all the other fullbacks are injured, so that's a pretty safe one. So it feels safe enough, but that budget would be gone. So it's 3.2 in the bank with that, but that would be gone from absorbing the extra, turning Gordon into Saka after the double. So stuff to think about. And, now that we know that maybe this Forest double's not as good, it makes it easier and not easier, because who does your budget defender now become? Now we're not relying on a cheaper Forest asset.
So
I think you had your mic on mute, just to be embarrassing.
Oh, hang on. Am I muted still?
No, you're good now.
Oh, good, yeah. I was going to say, we're going to end up with a very similar team, because if you can see right here, my Saka, he was Gordon.
Yeah.
Right? Minter was my cheap enabler. to a forward attacker, and then someone in my back line was going to be an Arsenal defender. So, mate, we're gonna end up with a very, very similar team.
Yeah. Would you need to do Gvardiol to an Arsenal to afford it?
Depends on who I go in the back line. I could downgrade a Milenkovic to a Nico Williams and then Stolicic up to a David Raya.
Yep. Yep.
And then that would then give me a really strong bench boost because then I'm playing Nottingham Forest against Spurs. Depends on which Spurs shows up, to be honest.
Yeah.
Spurs v Spursy. So it depends.
And that's what I haven't budgeted in. I haven't budgeted in a second keeper because the keeper that I'd be able to afford is not going to be worth having. I'm going to get 1 point, 2 points if they play. So I haven't bothered swapping Fabianski out. Maybe I get a miracle and he plays on that day. But for me, to be able to afford to swap him for a 4.5 would mean not having Salah or Saka or downgrading Isak. Like the best scenario not the best scenario, but a scenario that like one of them gets injured again, Saka doesn't come back, and then the money doesn't go to Saka, and I can upgrade to Raya and have Raya and Sells. So it's still early, and that's like we were talking about before about the free transfers. The injuries happen all the time, suspensions happen all the time. Like it's probably wise enough to go into a bench boost with one keeper, but say Sells gets sent off the week before and he doesn't play, and I have no goalkeepers, probably not clever. So keeping some options open is probably important. And that's where my decision to maybe play Dallo instead of Dango and keep the free transfer is kind of niggling at me.
So here's a question, is like just a thought here. Do you think the triple palace is a bit of a, what do you call it? Not a Trojan horse, but like it's a bit of a red herring because if you look at their fixture, I mean, are we overestimating how good Palace are? Because if you look at their fixtures, Southampton and Brighton the next two, which are arguably okay, then they've got Man City, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Arsenal between 32 to 34, and then Forest. They have a terrible run of fixtures. And sure, there's doubles in there, but the double is against Man City and Newcastle, and then the double after that is against Arsenal and whoever else they're going to double against in 33.
Yeah, and I mean it's one of those you're not going to get points you're not in the games for. So having some skin in the game, I feel, is important. Having too much could also kill your season. I think if you're going Asar and Eze, Metetrophy's back in, a Munoz, I think you're safe. They're going to play. You think Eze is talismanic. He's probably going to play the most minutes, maybe. Sar's been on good form. They have a good partnership in the middle there. I'm thinking that if you're trying to pick a differential, you're maybe going to get stung. But Palace have conceded 1 goal away from home since the start of the year. So, like, if you're going to bet on a team, you're betting on a fairly safe team at this point, and they've got stuff to fight for now. So the difference being, we talked about like City and Villa might look at resting players in their FA Cup games in the before they semi-final ties. Palace are kind of in that little bit where, and Forest, I think, they want to go in and they want to show that they can win. They're going to want to make a statement win in the Premier League before they go and play City in the FA Cup or whoever they get. They're going to want to show that this is who we are. We still can beat you. Whereas City don't need to do that. Villa don't need to do that. They have proven that for the last few seasons. They can take some rests and some players. So I think 2 is where I'm sitting. I was at 3 when we still had Mateta, but now Mateta's a little bit downgraded and he's a bit of a risk. I think I'm on a safe 2 with Munoz and one of the midfield boys.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Which means, who do I transfer Chris Wood to? And I think I might go rogue.
Ooh.
I want to go Chris Wood to Marmoush.
Yeah. It's not a bad call. I mean, they're going to get a double. More than likely, they've got... they can only go up. Surely they can only go up.
They've got a great run of fixtures. they've got City have an amazing run of fixtures towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and if you're going for a midfield option, I think you do go for him because he's the most advanced. He's going to get the most minutes, and I don't really see anyone else coming in on that side for his minutes. He's coming in and hit the ground running. Doku hasn't really. Grealish is on the peripheries.
Foden played Foden played when Marmoush didn't. It'll be interesting to see who gets that spot, but Foden wasn't great. Foden hasn't been great, so that's why I'm thinking, hey, Marmoush might be the way to go.
And the only downside is Marmoush is a forward in the game, but plays in midfield, so you are losing the points. Whereas if Foden plays and scores, you're getting the extra points.
That's true.
And it does mean you then lack a striking spot. So if you can't stay on a like a Wissa, or you can't have Haaland, Wissa. It's is again easier now that Mateta's out of the picture. We're thinking, but you can't have an Evan Nielsen if they hit a good reign of form and get some doubles. You are restricting yourself a little bit. And how much are the points going to be spread between them? Like Haaland, if you can get to him, is definitely the one to get. Penalties, proven, but doubling up again. We can always talk about if you're on the right combination of players, it could be what catapults you up 50,000 places. So
here's the thing that
go
on. The likes of I like Wissa, but Brentford's run of fixtures aren't great. Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton, yes, but they could be pretty good. Forest, their next 6 games are not good fixtures, right? So, would you really be holding a Wissa at front when you've got these potential doubles? Doubles in the bank. Mateta I haven't written off yet. I think I just want to see him play. I want if Mateta absolutely smashes it in the next 1 or 2, then potentially. Yeah. Look, let's see how we go.
And Brentford keeping him. I've got 2. I've got Wissa. I've got Mbeumo. I'm keeping him.
Mbeumo's the one to keep.
Yeah, I'm keeping them both this week because they're probably both leaving on a wild card, but they're playing Newcastle away. It's going to be a bit of an atmosphere. Newcastle have just won their first cup in a long time. They have had an open bus tour. I'm hoping there's going to be a few kind of hangover missed trainings. Maybe they're not on form. Maybe there's a bit of a Brentford slip-up coming. That's my hope. That's where my money is. It's probably very foolish, but, it's a big picture thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Newcastle's run of fixtures goes down when Brentford's goes up, which is around that game week 35, game week 36. So it may not be a worst cold where we're switching our Newcastle players, midfielders back into Brentford when that happens. But look, we're going to find out more after this game week starts. We're going to know exactly when doubles happen. But until then, everyone, best of luck.
Best of luck, guys. See you next week.
See you next week.